Thank you for taking the time to be here today. Thank you for trusting me to guide you through this information about the map of awakening, this initiation portal of your 40s. And bring your hands to heart center. Just connecting with our hearts while we use our minds and our intellect to receive this information. May we receive it fully through our hearts and our whole bodies. And while we know astrology is both ancient and futuristic, it is a vast, never-ending well of wisdom. And I trust that we will receive whatever it is we need to know today. We will let whatever needs to land and allow it to unfold as needed. We give thanks to each one of the planets, the stars, the luminaries, for guiding us on this journey on Earth. We give thanks to our souls, our higher selves, and our teams of guides that have guided us to this moment and on our journey. We are open, willing, and ready to receive the energies and consciousness of these planetary beings, this consciousness that exists through all life. Knowing that these planets and stars and solar, lunar energies do not necessarily govern us, but rather project their own unique energy signatures into the field of consciousness that we are playing with and playing in, and that moves through our energy fields and through our bodies and through our own consciousness. Grateful for this opportunity, and thank you to every astrologer before me that has brought this wisdom forth. And we may begin. All right. All right, thank you. Welcome to the course. All right. So module 1 will kind of go through a foundation of what it is we're tapping into. So again, this is talking about our midlife. So this is a portal, as I was saying, but it really is this decade that is meant to be an awakening. It's truth revealing. It's shedding your identity that is no longer in alignment anymore, which, may come from past conditioning, the way we were raised, the places we've lived, the religions we've been in or not been in, our school systems, and just all the way that society has formed us to arrive at this gate, which then asks us very deeply through very specific transits about our identities. It is another questioning of who am I really at the core of my being. And it's actually asking us not only to shed, some of our conditioning that maybe was put upon us and wasn't exactly our choosing, but it's even deeper than that. It's really asking us to align with our soul self. Like, who are we in our true divine nature? And through that process, it does a lot of nervous system rewiring, changes and evolutions within our relationships, both romantically and with friends and with our work, with life itself. It seeks for us to find deeper purpose and really to align more with our soul mission, which we've really been guided on our soul mission all along. So if we look at our astrology and our blueprints, our birth charts, I always, through evolutionary astrology, take the lens of the soul, as I've said many times, and we choose our blueprints before birth at a soul level with our team of guides. And so everything we've moved through, even all the conditioning and all the layers and experiences that we have, has all been part of the plan and the process and the mission. But this is more about a shift into our soul mission, where we work consciously, like really like, who am I outside of everything that life has made me be, and who do I choose to be moving forward for this second, essentially half or more of life. And it's really asking us to call in a soul remembrance, like, who am I at a soul level, and what did my soul choose to come here and do, and how can I pivot to align with that more fully? So these transits take us through a journey of what is falling away, what is merging, what truth is calling to you, what feels impossible to ignore anymore, and really, what are we preparing for? So it really begins in your 30s, and that really starts with your first Saturn return. So Saturn takes a 30-year journey around the entire zodiac chart. So somewhere between 29 and 30 is where Saturn, the planet of karma, structures, rules, authority, boundaries, all of your schooling, your job, your work, how you show up in life, your identity, your stability, everything that you're responsible for. That's Saturn's job. And at 30, it kind of has this check in like, okay, you've been through your entire childhood, all of your schooling, took on maybe your first jobs, your first bit of real responsibility in the world. And it has this check in point at 30 of like, time to take life a little bit more seriously, time to get a little bit more responsible. And there's probably a deepening in your career at that point where maybe early 20s, we're kind of dabbling and still figuring out who am I in the world. And Saturn kind of comes in with this check in. So a lot of times Saturn, that's when people turn 30. It's kind of no wonder we have these big milestone markers in our life where we have a celebration of turning 30, a celebration of turning 40. These big milestones are really structured astrologically to be big check-in points in life. But then the next check-in, so sometimes Saturn transits feel intense. People do have a more deepening aspect of their career and Saturn type structures, or they get married, somewhere within that range. But then around 36, the nodal return happens, which recalibrates your inner compass, and something begins to stir. And an undeniable question arises about your direction, your purpose, and your alignment. The nodal return to me was the very first transit that really jolted me into falling in love with astrology in particular. So I was still kind of playing in the realm of like, sun, moon, rising. Okay. And I kind of kept it light until I started learning about the nodes. And that's what took me onto a journey of evolutionary astrology because it had me reflect back to that period of time in my life when I was an event producer and owned an event planning company. And my whole life had been on this trajectory of events. And everything I had done had been to build this big career that I had in a whole business that I had. And there was something before knowing astrology within me that was I couldn't tolerate it any longer. And I was really at the peak of my career and successful and had the biggest events you could possibly get, like Formula One. I mean, I'd really just kind of done it all. But there was something in me that at the time I was calling, like PTSD or burnout. I was maximum stress and couldn't go on anymore, which to me, looking back, kind of felt like a little bit of a midlife crisis. It's what made me pause my business and go to yoga teacher training. And from that, I came out of my yoga teacher training where I couldn't go back to events. And I knew something deep had shifted in me towards what is my soul trajectory, my soul mission, which is what I do now, which is working as a consciousness teacher and a spiritual guide and an astrologer, a yoga teacher, a retreat leader, all those things that are in the realm of my soul mission. But I really didn't know that at the time. So it looked crazy to my husband at 36. And I was like, I think I want to go to teacher training. And he's like, what? So I love having that insight later in my 40s, actually looking back and being like, when was my nodal return? And it was in 2015. And I went to yoga teacher training in September 2015. So that really turned me on to, wow, there really is something to this and to these turning points in your life. So that was what, can look like a midlife crisis. It looks crazy when you don't know what's going on, that something is intolerable anymore. And there's an idea perhaps, and it doesn't always happen the way mine did, but there's maybe something else calling to you that you feel like you're yearning for, or you just don't know why, but it's a whole body move in a different direction. Or maybe you're already aligned with what you're doing and it just moves you deeper into what you already do. But it is an initiation. It is not a crisis. And at the time, it might look like a crisis, but it really is this listen to your soul. It's getting louder and it continues to get louder. So this passage is really all about timing. None of this is meant to be a punishment or a disruption or to try to make your life just crazy, but rather inviting you into deeper awareness, courage, and trust in your own unfolding. So this initiation, the things that we're going to cover today, This decade activates multiple overlapping cycles. So again, I want to preface with this is a lot of information. So you will have the recording so you can go back through it. And of course, this happens, Eric, I know you're turning 40 soon. And so this is an unfolding over many years, at least for the next 7, 8 years for you. So this is not all going to happen at once, but it is nice to have a heads up and can kind of come back to this over and over to feel your way through as things arise. It helps me anyways, zoom out and realize the bigger picture and what's happening, and you can work with it more consciously versus disruption of sorts. So we're going to go through the annual perfections, which is all about it's a Hellenistic timing cycle, which I have found really fascinating. That's something I only came across recently this past year. And again, was another spot on thing for me. And then we go through the midlife transits, which is kind of the core of this training course, the Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto transits. The progressed moon is also something very interesting, which is another timing cycle, which is really about the maturation of your journey as a soul on Earth. We talk about the hormonal and nervous system rewiring that's also simultaneously happening during your 40s, so kind of the health of your body. And because this shift is not just consciousness, it's not just your work and relationships. It is literally also a physical body initiation. Partnership, career, spiritual awakening, your soul mission. The 40s are definitely meant to reveal the deepest parts of you. So again, just to kind of touch on your nodal return, and I'm going to grab we can look at your chart as well, Erica. I think I have you over here, right here. Okay. So the nodal return, the nodes are a mathematical point. It's the ecliptical axis where we have eclipses. And so the nodal return happens, the nodes move every 18 months, and it takes 18 years for it to make a full cycle around. And so the nodal return is when the nodes return to your north node position. So on your chart, that looks like this little set of headphones, looks like a headphone. So your node is in Aries in the 29th degree in the 8th house. So last year, it was, I think, 24 to 2025, I think, or maybe it's into 23 to 24. You actually did have your nodal return here. I think it was in 2024. I'm just going to shrink this so I can see you. I like to be able to feel like I'm talking to somebody. Okay.
Well, I just wanted to say too that like that nodal return for me was very obvious. Same thing with Saturn return. In fact, I feel like part of my nodal return was like manifesting you in the yurt because I did have this like yearning for like spiritual sisters. And you created the yurt. I found the yurt at 36, like went
Oh,
to my first new moon ceremony. It was like the Virgo new moon, which is also my rising sign. Um, so yeah, and for me, it was not like so much related to my career, but it was more about like a spiritual awakening, and having like this really big jolt that happened through my dream life, to wake me up and go, whoa, there's like multiple dimensions to this life.
and
So
that makes total sense for you because it's in your 8th house. And the
yeah,
8th house is the house of the mystic, the occult teachings, and awakening, transformation, in addition to, resources and shared resources. But that's also, yeah, one of the deepest houses, just like the 12th house. So that would make sense that your nodal return is asking you to awaken and go deeper. So that's an interesting clue to keep, just keep in the back of your mind as this nodal return really does kind of activate. It's kind of, I call it Destiny's first whisper. It's what activates the stirring within you, where like some of the deeper work doesn't really start to happen yet, but it definitely is a nudge. I mean, my best word for it is a soul nudge. It's like your soul going,
yeah.
okay, we've been playing like human life for a while now, and it's time to go a little deeper. So it definitely awakens soul missions, aligns you with your karmic path, especially working in the 8th house. That's probably opened a can of worms that you've been able to look at more truthfully It's brought teachers, mentors, initiations, shifts your direction in life, what's important to you. Also starts to dissolve what's not part of your soul path, what's not part of your destiny. Things start to fade out. And with it being an Aries too, like it requires you to take action on your mission, on your node. It really wants you to take actionable steps and put some energy into it. And also gives you motivation to do so, just having that fire sign. Because sometimes it can show up in Pisces and then really be illusory. Be like, oh no, what is it? Or, I mean, also very spiritual, but it can make it harder to sense, like, what am I supposed to do? So, with it being an Aries for you, that makes sense that it would show up bright and fiery, and you can feel it and has energy to take action on it. And that's really what prepares you for your journey. So, this is kind of like the seed moment. And we'll talk about perfections in a minute. But the node in particular works with your age 38 with your third house perfection, and at age 39, the fourth house perfection. So every year of our life, and we'll talk about this in more depth in just a minute, every year of your life has a timing cycle from the moment you're born. You basically work on one particular house at a time, has kind of like a spotlight on it, and it works in 12-year cycles, which is kind of like these timing cycles, which is a part of your kind of like your spiral of evolution, which is really interesting because it kind of gives you like another focus that you have, another lens that you're kind of looking at life through. So yeah, something to kind of just keep in the back of your mind is what has unfolded for you from 36 to 39, what truths began whispering, and what emotional or relational patterns surfaced. And for you, with the node being in the eighth house, I would take that eighth house stuff into consideration here when you're thinking about that as well. So continuing on the foundation, the years 38 through 39 are also continuing to help prepare you and lay the foundation for moving into your 40s, because the transits in the 40s are quite intense. So 38 to 39 starts to help you just again, that stirring starts to happen, dissatisfaction with old patterns, old habits, the feeling of restlessness, like things need to change. I need to release some things. I need to do more things. I need to deepen here and there. Some people even start to have those body shifts and hormonal patterns and energetic changes happen where, like perimenopause can begin as early as 36, 38. And I know my journey didn't really begin until about 45, 46 with that, but I know other people who have all the way back to 36. But now, having been through that journey myself also, I look back and I'm like, wow, I mean, it really is a full body thing where I think sometimes it gets compartmentalized. And again, we'll get to the body later, but it gets compartmentalized as like health, aging separate, astrology separate, but it really is a whole body portal that we go through. And it does shift you energetically, consciously, spiritually, even psychic tuning abilities. But another thing that comes up during these foundation years is a longing for meaning. Like, am I going to keep doing the same job or relationship or thought process or, family patterns? There's just this longing for more meaning. I need more out of life. Like, surely I'm not born to just go to school, get a job, and then work and pay taxes, do a few things here and there, retire one day, maybe, I hope, and then die. And you really start to have that craving. Like, there's a lot of you through your 30s that senses that, but then this is where it really starts to be, I need more. I need spirit. I need source. I need to know that there's purpose behind more than just a job. There's also a deeper awareness of something coming, like there's something big about to unfold. Also, intuition, your sensitivity, your, maybe even psychic abilities come on for some people, telepathic abilities come on, just a more intuitive knowing of more. Internal house cleaning. So you might be more called to do health resets, detoxes, just how your mind works and processes information, really wanting to align with purpose, and life starts to rearrange itself both internally and externally. So these are the pre-initiation phases of your 40s. And then we'll talk about the annual perfections. So the perfection is actually an ancient technique from Hellenistic astrology. That's like one of the most ancient versions of astrology. I haven't studied Hellenistic. I've dabbled in it and definitely have peeked into it a little bit. That's where they get more like I guess, prediction astrology. So Hellenistic astrology is for predictions. And I like to focus more on soul evolution versus predictions because I do feel like sometimes if we're predicting things always, then we're just creating our reality before we even choose to create our reality. So I think it's fun to kind of play with both, but I like to focus on evolutionary astrology and like what is my soul asking in the here and now moment, and I can co-create from my heart space and from soul guidance versus predictive astrology, which would ultimately create the path for you because it's what you believe. But the perfection in Hellenistic is beautiful and is I have found it very useful in my own life. So at age 0, when you're born, your first year you're working with the first house, age 1, second house, age 2, the third house, and so on until you get to age 11, you're working with the 12th house. And then at age 12, you're back to working with the first house again. So that's where, even when you look at like psychology patterns of children growing up, I mean, it really follows a lot of our natural patterns. At 12 being we're back to identity. 12 is like adolescence, your last year about to move into this new phase of, kind of asking this question, who am I now that I might not be quite such a kid anymore? I'm in middle school. So it really is interesting. And you go now from 12 to 24 and 24 to 36. And so you just have these patterns, 36 to 48. And it really starts to follow the astrology quite remarkably as well. So you can see these are also these big turning points here. That's the little wheel that you see. These are big turning points, kind of that also follow the cardinal path, the cardinal cross. So this means every year of your life has a very specific theme. Some years we're going to have more of an emphasis on relationships. Some years are going to be more of a highlight on career, home, creativity, spirituality, identity. That house basically gets activated like a spotlight, and you'll hear it called Lord of the Year. So also the ruler of that house kind of becomes your Lord of the Year as well. And we'll go through those in your chart exactly, so you can kind of see where those are for you as well right now. All right. So in particular, this is the map of your 40s so that you can kind of work with these as you move through your 40s. So when you turn 40, you work with your 5th house, which is your creativity, your children, joy, and expression. So we'll just even look at your charts because your 5th house is Capricorn. So you're also going to take not only the information about the 5th house itself, which is play, pleasure, intimacy, romance, your inner child, children itself, but also through a Capricorn lens. So those kind of things are going to want structure. And the house ruler would be Saturn. So Saturn would be something to pay attention to, being that Saturn just had the big conjunction and moved into Aries, which is also your house of your sun. So it's interesting to pay attention. It would be interesting to pay attention to both of these houses, with Saturn being your ruler of your 40th year. So Saturn is going to
Or
be doing, huh?
maybe you're about to just say more about that.
Yeah. So one, if we look through the lens of your 40th year, is going to have an extra highlight of creativity. Saturn is going to, Saturn's going to want you to do that, to actually take some steps, make a routine, schedule some time, give it some structure. Also looking at romance and intimacy and what you do for fun and what's pleasurable. So instead of Saturn's work, 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 Saturn's actually there to be like, hey, let's put some time and structure set aside to play. Now, with Saturn and Neptune over here at the 0 degrees of Aries, Aries is your 8th house. So again, I feel like there's going to be something that's alluding back to maybe something that was inspiring to you during that nodal return. So this is where we're going to want to remember what was stirring and what was kind of being made space for from 36 to 40. What longing have you had that's in the creative 5th house that is also connected to the 8th house? So again, if you were having those stirrings of community and spiritual teacher and awakening and soul mission and some of those more mystic aspects of the 8th house, Saturn is actually there with Neptune making real the dream. So Saturn, planet of boundaries and structure and responsibility and timekeeping, and also connected to Neptune, the opposite of that. So your higher self, your soul, dreams, 5D consciousness, more fluidity. Saturn together with Neptune is making real the dream. And for you, that dream in the eighth house is the dream of working with your soul, the dream of awakening, the dream of the study of occult teachings and the mysticism and the things that are coming up for you, that full awakening that started to stir at 36 in Aries. So Aries is going to be like, take some action on that. So those two houses are really going to be like, take some action on your dreams and your creativity and your play. And Saturn is there to help you be responsibly doing that, giving it some structure and making it happen, like really doing that. And it's going to require you to really do that because Saturn's going to be there for the long run, for the next 3 years, going through your eighth house. Neptune will be going through here for 14 years. So, and eventually those two will cross over your sun, and those two will also cross over your north node. And that will definitely be a time of like, are you aligned now with your soul mission? Saturn also wants you to do it without burnout. So if it was just Aries, it would be like, impulsive, and I got to do it, and I got to do it now. Saturn is like, slow down, hang on a minute. Let's really make sure we're doing the things that we really like that are meaningful. So again, I think that eighth house is going to want meaning to it. That nodal return that you had that really wants meaning and purpose and spirituality. And so it helps tend, I've been calling the Aries, the Saturn in Aries, like the fire is like a sacred fire that you're constantly tending to, rather than Aries normal fire that could just be like burnout and impulsive and nothing sticks. So Saturn's there to make it sustainable for the long run.
Yeah.
So that sounds
I mean,
fun. Your 40
having the
sounds
Capricorn
fun.
energy too, I feel like is supportive of that because it's
Yes.
about like routines and structure. And just to
Yeah.
share a personal example, I feel like it's hilarious because astrology is undefeated every time. Literally on the Saturn Neptune conjunction, I like finished a uh perfume concoction that I had been working on for like a month. I was
I
like,
love
I'm blending it today. It's happening. It's done. And this is, I feel like, going to kick off like a decade long, probably obsession for me of making perfume. So that's really cool.
I love that so much. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. I love that. That's a perfect day to do that. I mean, that day was really, I mean, I've talked about it in a lot of our circles, but they, at one point they said it never happened in human existence of record keeping. But I know Heather Ensworth ended up finding a Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries, but still not the 0 degree point, but 6,000 years ago. So only one other time, 6,000 years ago, but still never at 0 degrees to the same minute also. Because Saturn and Neptune do 36-year synodic cycles often, but they just have been in different signs.
Yeah.
And this is, a big deal because it's the first degree of the entire zodiac. So whatever is kicking off is both, for Neptune's next 165 years collectively and Saturn's next 30 years, and for both of us, for all of humanity and the collective, for the long run. Whatever is changing is for the long run. And I love it because it's like Neptune is bringing in the higher purpose and more of a soulful purpose and more of a creative aspect, and Saturn is there to like give it legs and make it happen. So that's a perfect day to do that. I love that. And I know you had talked about having that idea quite some time ago too.
Yeah. As part of the Homo Luminous
Yeah. So that was like
series that you did.
2024,
Yeah, I was like, I
23.
got this whole download of like an entire collection of perfumes with all of the scents and like names and everything. And then I just put it on the bookshelf for 2 years. And then sometime in the last 3 months, it just started stirring again. And then I was just like, I'm going to do this now. And just the energy was different. I was ready to do it.
I love it. Congrats. That's
Yeah.
awesome. All right. So let's see. Okay, so 41, I mean, 40 sounds like it's going to be a fun year to focus on creativity. And then you can kind of just touch on 41 is going to be more about your body. That's the sixth house. 42 is relationships, marriage, partnership. Eighth house, shadow work, intimacy, rebirth. 44, expansion, spirituality and teaching. 45, 10th house career. So it's just, each one of the houses all the way, which I'm looking forward to 48, rebirth and identity renewal after all this. And 49, your second house, worth, money, values, stability. And then you'll go into your Chiron return, which we'll talk about. So keep those in mind always, because simultaneous to having these focus houses, you'll have the big transits going on. So while those transits are happening, each one of them are over a period of time, like 1 and 2 years of these long transits. You'll be able to look at what are these transits working with also in these focuses of the perfections. Interesting to see how our journey unfolds. So we'll do a quick exercise just so you can find your exercise. Your perfections. So here, again, if you want to jot this down, you have Capricorn, ruler being Saturn. That's how you find the fifth house perfection. And your ruler would be Saturn that year. So that's your Lord of the year. And then we just talked about the themes, and then you can kind of track lived experiences and insights. So this is the map you can kind of work with each time you're moving through those years. So the main core of the course is, I first learned about these from Barbara Handclough, which blew my mind. And I don't know if you've read her book, Astrology and the Rising of Kundalini.
No, I'm going to write
I
that one down
highly
now.
recommend I highly recommend reading that book after this too, because she just goes. She's been an astrologer for 40 something years. She's got deep knowledge of this. Also works with the Pleiadians, and also just super cool spiritual woman. She's done a ton of work in Egypt with the pyramids. So she has a lot of different perspectives that she infuses as well. But I found her book and was like mind blown at the time, and took my own rabbit holes after that. But she talks about three major life initiations. One that we talked about, the Saturn return, which is like 28 to 30. And then the next one are these midlife transits, which I love how she narrows it to three, but really in the midlife transits, there's three within those. And that's going to be the core that we talk about. And the midlife transits are working with Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus. And those are really what take us through that whole midlife crisis or midlife awakening. And then we have the Chiron return from age 50 to 52, which really is like this opportunity to master everything that you've been. You become the elder, the wise one, and all of those transits in your 40s are meant to take you to this moment where you feel like you've integrated everything, and you feel really whole within yourself and connected to your soul and source, and it should be really beautiful. And a lot of times when people are resisting and really going against the grain of these transits and what they're asking them, the Chiron return becomes very, very challenging. If you've completely resisted everything in your 40s, that was already challenging. And then 52 can feel like a real breakdown. Because Chiron is the wounded healer. And at this point in your life, it's like, did you heal all the things so that you can be free? It's like ultimate liberation to enjoy life. We're enjoying life all through the process, but especially if we live consciously, because otherwise it can become very, very challenging. So the midlife transits, the cosmic triad, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. The Pluto square Pluto is the first one, which can happen somewhere between 36 and 44, depending on where it lands in your chart. And I have your dates for you. You haven't been through it yet. It will call on some shadow work. It is about power and death and rebirth, which is, the theme of Pluto itself. It's the god of the underworld. It is meant to transform anything that is not in your highest alignment. Neptune square Neptune is a spiritual dissolving. It also is helping to turn on your intuition, and it can also feel very foggy and sensitive during that time. That's usually from 41 to 43. And the Uranus opposition is all about liberation, breakthrough, awakening. It is a spiritual awakening. It can happen as early as 38 and go all the way to 46, depending on your chart. But you usually see it show up 42 to 44. Yours has not happened yet. None of yours have happened yet. They're all coming up. And some of these overlap for people. Like my husband had all of them going on at the same time, which looked like a dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
is pretty intense. Um, so I have some reflection prompts here that I would suggest working with. That these are some of the things that you can kind of continue to reflect on as you move through these. Just about as you know over the years, over the coming years. All right. So the first one, Pluto square Pluto, is a deep midlife restructuring. So this is one of the most profound development transits of adulthood. Between 36 to 44, we're looking at a square, which is a 90-degree angle. So a square in astrology represents tension and demands action, especially with Pluto there. So Pluto is going to represent power, control, shadow materials, survival strategies, asking for deep transformation. So when Pluto squares itself, life really begins to dismantle any of the unconscious structures you built in the first half of your life. So Pluto squared Pluto is not technically very loud. It just starts to unravel things or make it very apparent that something isn't working anymore. And it's more like a slow burning pressure where you just can't do something anymore, or you just see it in a whole new light of like, how have I been doing this for so long? And again, it doesn't ever work with anything that is meant for you. Like if something's meant to stay and it's in your path and it's got a purpose and your soul is aligned with it, it matches your frequency, it's never going to clear things out that are meant for you. It's really just meant to clear anything that's built on unstable foundations. So the first half of life is about building career, partnership, reputation, identity through all the schooling that we do, all of that. And then now Pluto asks, is this structure still aligned with your soul, or was it built for survival? Was it built out of fear? Like, I'm supposed to do this, so here I am. So often you'll see career changes, people leaving relationships radically, quickly. People often begin therapy or deep inner work, confront long avoided family patterns. They feel a sense of, I cannot keep living this way. Again, it's not necessarily a crisis, but if you're not aware of these things, it certainly can feel like that. Can you imagine just suddenly like, I just got to change jobs, or I don't like my marriage anymore? Or, I mean, and if people don't know what's going on and can stop and review it and understand this is asking the deeper questions. But it is a very deep psychological transit. So it removes just really whatever's false. And by the end of this transit, you're more honest, more aware, self aware, less willing to abandon yourself. You start to stick up for yourself a lot more, especially in career situations or if people are in bad marriages. And you start living from the core of your being rather than conditioning. So here's how to find your natal Pluto. We look at your birth chart, we find the sign, the degree, and the house that it's in. And we can go do that for you right now. Here's your charts. Okay. So once you find the sign, we go 3 houses after it. So here's your Pluto. Your natal Pluto is in the 3rd house in Scorpio. And we go 1, 2, 3 houses to find Pluto in the 6th house. So that's where Pluto is going to be squaring in its perfect square when it's Pluto square Pluto in Aquarius, when it gets to 6 degrees Aquarius. So you're very close because Pluto is at like 4 degrees right now.
Also
But
moves very slowly, doesn't it?
moves very slow. So Pluto takes 20 years to move through Aquarius. So I looked up the dates on an ephemeris. Do you know how to look up things on an ephemeris?
Uh-uh.
Okay, I'll do that for you right now, just so you have an idea of how to do that. So the date I pulled up for you is February 24th, 2027, and it lasts till about 2028. Ephemeris 2027. So you can look up ephemeris for every year. So I just type in ephemeris 2027. You can look up whatever year you want to look at. And I like to use the astro.com one. You can also go directly to astro.com and click it, but there's a whole bunch of things on there. So I just find it easier to Google and pull it up immediately. When you come here, you look for the symbol of Pluto, which is this little P. And then you go down the column to find the date, the degree. So yours is 6 degrees Aquarius. And that would start, you'd look at the date all the way over here to find the 24th of February 2027. So that's what it's going to be exact. You can also look all the way to the minute, 6 degrees, 18 minutes. And you can see 6 degrees, 18 is going to be right around like March 6th to March 7th. That'll be when it's exact. But know that the pressure starts to build way before it actually hits the degree. So you could already be starting to feel it because it's technically in a conjunction with your degree, your squared degree right now at 4 degrees because it's 2 degrees away. So again, Pluto is very, it's more subtle. It's because it's long and slow and takes deep transformation. It's more subtle. So it's not like things are going to start dissolving right now, but you might start feeling that shift of what's coming up, particularly between your third house and your sixth house. And as we've had readings, we already do feel that because you've had a lot coming up with your voice. And it's going to be, activating both of these houses. So in Scorpio, that's going to be going into deep emotional aspects of your communication. That's going to be going into what needs to transform about how you communicate, what you learn, what you study, how you feel about your voice and speaking up and communicating. But also, we look over to your sixth house. The square here is going to be building attention with your everyday life. So sixth house is everyday work. So maybe it's communicating at work, but it's also your body consciousness. So this could also bring up things the way you hear and speak and communicate from your body, like listening to your body's messages, your health, your supplements, your routine, your exercise. It's all the things that you do every day. And then we take into that Aquarian aspect as well. So that's what is future oriented. It's also technology, digital devices, the collective, the people, groups, futuristic thinking, invention. So it could be innovative communication coming up, but it's going to create a square. So square is a tension where you might feel pulled from like wanting to keep your voice more Scorpio like, which is hidden and secretive, but this is asking you to bring it out into your everyday. This is asking you to take what you feel out into the public, out into the collective. So that's
Fun.
kind of, and it's a tension, meaning like you're struggling with yourself. Like, do I want to keep it in or do I want to say something? Do I want to work on behalf of the public or do I want to like just keep it a secret? And that's
Yeah,
kind of the,
definitely feeling the tension there already of like
yeah,
studying all these esoteric topics and then trying to like feel out who is ready to hear that information on my daily basis, right? Like
yeah,
we can't just, I mean, some people are like really turned off by talking about astrology. They're like, oh, wow, that person is immediately like a woo-woo crazy person. Although I
yeah.
feel like we're
People
getting
always,
further
they,
away from that.
yeah, it's what, when people don't understand something, they have,
Yeah.
you know, um,
Liv, I wanted to ask you something really quick. How do you figure out, you said mine's happening at 6 degrees Pluto is when it squares. Is that because it's at 6 degrees in my
yes,
chart, my natal chart?
yes. So your
Okay.
natal Pluto is 6 degrees, 18 minutes
So
in
then
the
you
third
go and
house.
look for when Pluto is going to be transiting
Yeah, to
at
make a
six
perfect square,
degrees.
it's when it's 3 houses ahead of you. And that makes a 90-degree angle. If you were to go like draw a line to the center and then draw a line across, that would make a 90-degree angle, which is a square.
Got
So yeah,
it.
when this transiting Pluto reaches 6 degrees, which is right here,
Mhm. Then
uh,
it'll be at
then
the
that will be in its
perfection.
square perfection. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay,
And if you forget that, it's all spelled out right here. So you can look
cool.
again another time. But yeah, I pulled up the dates. That exact day, I mean, the 6 degree begins February 24th, 2027. But again, it perfects in March. But then you have to remember with these big planets that it has retrograde. So you'll experience the square like 3 times. It'll be the first time it passes, when it retrogrades back over, and then when it passes across again.
Yeah,
And
it's like
so,
let's try this out. Nope, we're gonna evaluate that. Did
yeah,
that
so
work?
I
Did it
always
not?
call those, oops, I always call those like a scrubbing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like scrubbing that, like, did you get it? Did you get it? So that's probably just really going to be calling your voice forward to the public, to the collective, or on behalf of the collective. And very future oriented. I think it's going to have, what you've been learning in the depths of your emotions and wanting to pull that out will be something to help the future of the collective. Okay, then we have the Neptune square Neptune, which is all about dissolving of illusion and spiritual reorientation. So again, Neptune, as we talked about a minute ago, governs dreams and higher frequency energies, the higher self, the soul. It's boundless. It's like, the element is water. It rules Pisces. It's very, in flow, idealistic, but can also be illusion, escapism, imagination, creativity. I love Neptune, especially for my dreams.
Yeah.
Um, so this one is definitely not sharp or confrontational like Pluto is. It's more subtle, foggy, and disorienting. Which I first learned about this transit through Ren's chart, through my husband's chart, because it was happening in his 10th house of career, and he was really during this period of time really feeling like he couldn't do what he was doing anymore, but he really didn't know what to do next. And he felt very lost. And the topic of feeling very lost was very job oriented, where he just really had some opportunities to sit and like leave a job and figure out what's next and just really couldn't pull through the next thing. And I really was guiding him through that. Like, it's because Neptune, square Neptune, is making it impossible and making him ask, who am I? And who am I not? He went through a whole year of who am I not? Not, it was a lot of not this, not that, not this one, not that one, and in his job journey of his 10th house. So this one definitely has you question what you're chasing that doesn't feel meaningful or spiritual or any of those Neptunian qualities. What fantasies are dissolving? So this could be a period where people, walk into this corridor and they're like, "Whoa, was I wrong about thinking my job was incredible? Who is this boss? What do I stand for?" Or anything, like any of the houses can be really just like you've been seeing it through a different lens, and now it's almost like the veil is being removed.
Mhm.
Where were you projecting instead of seeing clearly? What spiritual truth is trying to emerge beneath your old ideas? Neptune also, being that it rules Pisces, can also cover addiction. So addictive behaviors can sometimes come up during this period also. Um, Disillusionment, spiritual questioning. This is definitely a spiritual awakening opportunity because it's this Piscean energy, Neptunian energy. Emotional sensitivity starts to increase, feeling lost, uncertain, untethered, grief around dreams that didn't unfold. So this is often the one I see the most, I think, with people is, again, especially if you very much have been living a life of conditioned behaviors and choices, like maybe you went to medical school or law school because your dad did and your grandpa did, and now you're a lawyer and you're miserable. And you're like, all of a sudden you kind of wake up to that, like, wow, I thought life would be better. And people feel deep sadness because they feel like, oh no, I'm in my 40s and it's too late to change, is the feeling people often get. So I do feel like that happens, especially for people that haven't been on a consciousness path, that haven't been evolving in real time like you have. And that's not to say that that's bad or right or wrong, but it just depends on how, people's journeys. But it's definitely this calling for something more soulful. So again, it doesn't destroy structures like Pluto does, it dissolves them. So it can make this period of time feel really confusing. Neptune rules the ocean. So when it squares itself, it's like the tide pulls back, is kind of how I see that, where the veil is removed. So things that felt inspiring can suddenly all of a sudden feel hollow and blurry, instead of certain and needing a recalibration. So during this transit, people will shift their spiritual paths, leave career that lacks purpose, experience relationship disillusionment, feel called towards creativity or healing work, confront addictive patterns and avoidance strategies. Um, Neptune square Neptune removes the dream that was built on projection and replaces it with a more honest one. So it can feel like drifting, but it is a reorientation. So usually by the end of this transit, you usually feel more inspired. What was illusion is gone. You're clear about that. And what is worth devoting your energy and time and heart into is more evident. So Pluto restructures your power, Neptune restructures your vision, and it's less about control, more about surrender. And that period of time definitely becomes mostly about surrender. Like I need to surrender and trust was my husband's mantra. Surrender and trust, surrender and trust. We're still moving through it. His is a long one. And he's got his Uranus opposition happening at the same time too. It's been a lot. And not everybody's overlaps like that. Some people get it in chunks and
Right.
mine was like in chunks where it kind of kept me, moved me along from like, you don't want this anymore. And then it was like, you want to go stay with monks in Nepal. And I was like, yes, I do. I'm going. Yes, I do want to go to yoga. I'm doing it. And it felt crazy because I left a lot of money on the table. I left a business I had built with employees and a great job. And I desperately wanted to just be breathing in incense and hearing monks chant and to be in Nepal. And I didn't know why. Like that was so out of character for me. I wasn't at all on that path. And I just had to. So Ren was like, we're doing what for your 40th birthday? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm sorry, we have to stay in different quarters because men and women aren't allowed to sleep together. But mine didn't feel quite as intense because I did trust it and just do it. But I also am
Mhm.
super grateful. Not everybody can do that, and my husband was very supportive and financially supported me to do that. And I'm super grateful for that. And I don't overlook that by any means because not everybody can just up and quit and go be dreamy and try to build
Mhm.
a new dream. So I definitely know that that's not the case. Neptune is there in that house for 14 years. So entire age groups will go through these transits at the same time. So a lot you'll feel very related to others that are going through things when you talk to them about it because it's a whole collective that goes through these things at the same time. So you also find your Neptune square Neptune the same way that you find Pluto. Again, because it's that collective. So we have Neptune is in your Capricorn house, in the fifth house, and we'll go 1, 2, 3 to find your Neptune square Neptune. So it's interesting that you're working with both energies of the fifth house and the eighth house for these, and Capricorn and Aries and Saturn and Neptune. That's interesting because once again, you have Saturn as your ruler of this house, but now you'll have Mars as your ruler over here. So the Lord of this Neptune square Neptune will be Mars and Saturn. Like the other one was Mars and Pluto. So again, I think Mars is going to be there to give you. I think of Mars as like your motivation and your energy to take action. So I think it's helpful that you have, because this Neptune square Neptune can be really, again, like hard to see, very subtle. So I think it's going to mainly be happening in your, like, working with the boundaries of your creativity and your dream. Again, I think it's going to be stimulating for your creative house again. Having that over here is going to bring that creative energy over to the eighth house. And the eighth house is going to feed its spiritual energy to the fifth house.
Cool.
So a lot of creative energy. I think that might be fun for you, actually. This doesn't so much look like a scary one. Although Neptune can make in the eighth house, can make, especially with a square there, can make resources tricky, I think. Like hard to, but again, so I'm looking at this just kind of in real time. I'm having like I don't know, kind of an intuitive hit. I think maybe it would have been hard to make financial sense of some of these Neptune, square Neptune dreams, these creative dreams, like maybe the perfume line, except that we now have Saturn in the eighth house conjunct Neptune, helping it make real, sustainable, tangible, give it legs. I think without Saturn being there, it could have been really like stay in the dream realm and not really take off as like you want it to. But I think Saturn being there is actually going to help make that real and tangible. So again, when we think of a square, it is going to be a tension there where the eighth house is going to want to be very transformational. The Aries energy is going to want to kind of like take off and run with it. The Saturn ruling Capricorn is going to kind of maybe slow it down a little bit, but because it's in the fifth house, it is going to have this creative flow. So it might be more of like a tension between creativity and spirituality, or creativity but needing the resources, or is this worth spending money on? I don't know. I just want to be creative. Like I think you'll have that, maybe that push pull between financial backing and creative aspects. But again, I think Saturn's going to be helpful there, because Saturn really wants you, but Saturn will want you to take action, especially with it
Okay.
being in Aries. It's going to require steps, like literally every day. There's going to be something that needs to be an everyday action, even if small, even if it's like today I'm making a schedule, and today I'm going to, these are my days that I do this. Okay, and I looked at the dates for you.
You.
Your Neptune square Neptune, fifth house, eighth house is April 19th, 2027. And that will be on its journey to 2028, maybe even a little bit 2029. I think it was 2028. And again, you'll have a journey where it passes once and then retrogrades and back again. And the degree point is 5 degrees. So it's when it gets to 5 degrees of Aries. And that's actually, that 5 degree mark right now has been activated and influenced by the Saturn Neptune conjunction. Anything within 5 degrees of that 0 degree conjunction has been activated by this big portal. So I do think it will have something to do specifically with your perfumes, since you did just ignite those, like launch those on the conjunction day. That'll probably come into play somehow during that Neptune square Neptune transit.
And you said it's April 2027 through April 2028, or like through that whole year of 2028?
27 through 28. We can take a look.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's go.
Got a lot going on in April 2027, because the other, my Pluto square Pluto is
Yeah,
also like
that's what I
exact
mean. Like
March 2027.
some of these,
So,
some of these overlap, so it can be a
hmm.
lot. But yours seems to have a little bit of a common theme, I feel like. All right, so we're looking at Neptune, which is this little trident looking thing.
Uh-huh.
We're going to go to 5 degrees in April. Oh no, it's February. February.
February 2028?
Yeah. Hold on, let me go back to 27. That might have been a retrograde year. So we're definitely still there in 2028, but let me look at 27 really quick. Did I click? No, dang it. Ah, okay, so 5 degrees April. Yeah, okay. So April 19th, it begins at 5 degrees. So again, that will start to build more like in the 3 and 4 degrees. So it'll start to build at the beginning of 27, you know, like
Mhm.
February, March. And then it goes on to 6. Let's see, it goes all the way. Okay, yeah, it starts to retrograde again in September. And yeah, September 1st, it retrogrades back to 5. So you'll have a retrograde over that. So this is your scrubbing period in the fall of 27. And then does it go direct again? So that's where 28 comes into play, when it has to go direct and back over it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then you just want to look to see when it finishes that transit all the way through the 6th degree, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, you'll still be feeling it a little bit until it's at least 2 degrees away, but it won't be exact.
Mm-hmm.
But you won't really feel the reprieve until it gets like a little bit further out. So yeah, it's direct and going back across in February of 28, and it moves on to the 6 degrees by the end of February.
Okay. February 2028.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it'll finally be in like 7 degrees, like at least 2 degrees out by April that year. So
Okay.
yeah, 27, 28 might be a little. Wishy-washy.
I've, for whatever reason, had this intuition about 42 as a number for me as being really important. I don't know
Oh,
why. So maybe that's when it seems like that's when that whole thing ends.
yeah. 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 And then that's when you get to have your
Or
Uranus.
is that when I have my Uranus opposition? That's when that kicks off.
Yeah, your Uranus opposition is actually it's quite a far out because you have a late degree Uranus, so it's in 2030.
Oh, wow.
And we'll double check that, but the Uranus opposition usually happens 40 to 42, but it can definitely be later depending on how late your degree shows up in your chart. An opposition looks like it creates a polarity. They're exactly opposite of your natal Uranus. So we'll show you your natal Uranus. It's here at 22 degrees, and it'll show up when it's 2 degrees Gemini over here. So we know that Uranus is moving into Gemini this year in April 2026, but then it takes 8 years to move through this sign. So it'll be later when it gets like 22, which is going to be conjunct your midheaven. So that will, and in your career house. So that's going to be like more personally felt. um, in your soul, your midheaven is more like your personal expression of your work through your job in your 10th house. And then your psyche is actually here at 24. So that will be in the conjunction. That'll be 2 degrees conjunct Uranus. And psyche is your soul. And so this will be, so if you think about Uranus being the great awakener, it's like sudden, shocking awakening, comes in quickly. It's often like it represents brilliance and new ideas and awakening itself, but it also comes in fast like lightning. It rules lightning. It also, so when it moves in and has this transit, it's meant to destabilize and shake up quite suddenly and quickly anything that's not in your highest alignment. So this would be shaking up your soul work or at a soul level. And because your soul psyche is there in the 10th house, your work is definitely, I mean, you got a lot going on. We've talked about your Gemini house before. You've got Black Moon Lilith there, which is like the divine feminine rage, will not tolerate things that are unfair and unequal. You've got your Chiron wound here as well. You've got your midheaven, like your expression is meant to be through your work, and then your psyche here means your work needs to be aligned with your soul. It is soul work to do, and then also your psyche is conjunct your moon, and so your emotional processing is soul level, and your soul speaks through you through your emotions, which often come up because of work, which means you're probably very passionate about your work and in what you do. It needs to require your emotions and your soul. Like you couldn't just be like an accountant, you know, for any reason.
My mom really wanted me to be a lawyer. I was like, nope, can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, nope. Let me go back to this. So Uranus represents freedom. It is also like rebellion, individuality, awakening, disruption, innovation, sudden change. So when Uranus opposes itself, it is destabilizing, but truly with the question of, are you living your authentic self or who you were taught to be? And it really, this is the one that really truly feels, because it can come in sudden and sharp and fast and come in like electricity. It can feel like the midlife crisis. The Uranus opposition is usually the one where like the man divorces the wife, buys the red Ferrari he always wanted instead of paying his child support, you know, or uh, or where people really have, you know, these knocks. Barbara Hancock calls them the 3 knocks of awakening, and each one starts gentle and then a little bit louder and then really loud, like the board on the back of the head type of. If you haven't been paying attention and you haven't been making the shifts, this is the one that's like, wake up. So, and again, I reiterate, for liberation, like nothing is ever meant to be seen as punishment or for no reason or no purpose. That it is really meant to liberate you from all bonds that are preventing you from soul alignment. And I will say, from witnessing RINs, the transit affects you way before it comes towards your degree because he hasn't even hit his degree point yet. It's like coming up like in a few days. But I will say, while it was making its journey, it's happening, it's coming up. But I feel like the actual degree day, or like the closer you get to it, the more clear and awake you are. Where when you're starting to feel the rumbles and the dislodging is really when like the destabilization is on its journey towards your degree. And then when you hit the degree, I mean, I feel like he has so much more clarity that it is like it has been an awakening. I mean, he really is so much more attuned to his mission and who he is and what he's clear about than he was when it started. Um, so this is also your midpoint of life, to where the second half of your life is meant to be more in alignment and more attuned. So Uranus asks you where you have compromised yourself, where you have stayed small to maintain stability, where you are living from obligation instead of inspiration. And it can feel disruptive because it does destabilize comfort, like wherever you've been like comfortable and not really following your, again, going back to your North Node, which is your clue to your soul mission, where you've been out of alignment with that, or out of line with your psyche and soul work, and living really just an obligation. This won't allow it. It won't allow obligation in any form to happen. And again, I mean that not in a way of like it rules you or governs you, but it's just the energy that your whole body feels like, I just can't do this. You're restless, impatient, craving change, absolutely intolerant of constraints. You have like a lot of energy because of that Uranus electricity, but you feel really unsettled. Again, and so this one works a lot with the nervous system, so it can be a lot of somatic work needed. But it's ultimately meant to make you have radical self-trust. Like, I fully know who I am, what I stand for, what inspires me. It's a creative reinvention, a renewed sense of aliveness. You really do have authentic boundaries because you're really clear on what you will not allow and what you will allow. And I really do think, like, Ren makes fun of me all the time. Like in my 40s, he says I have a running list of what I will not tolerate anymore. Including bad Chinese food. It's just like, I will not do small talk. I won't go to that party. I don't have to, and I won't. I will not put my energy in that room with those people. I will not, I won't. Like, it's not like you just really aren't like how you are in your 30s of like, well, maybe I'll meet somebody new. Maybe this. You're just like, no, my energy field does not do that. But not in a rigid way. It's just in a really conscious way of like, I protect my energy field and I choose to spend it with things that inspire me, people that lift me, places that are uplifting, and I just won't do anything otherwise. I just won't. That was my shift. So yeah, it can look like, again, radical honesty, career pivots, sudden lifestyle changes, new creative impulses, a desire to move or travel or experiment. Think liberation. It really wants to break free from roles that are suffocating. And I think in particular, because these transits are collective based, yours being in Saturn is going to really bring, or your Neptune is in Saturn, but your Uranus being in Sagittarius is about spirituality, faith, uh, travel, adventure, trust, the higher wisdom, the philosopher. It's all the higher mind. It's the higher mind of Gemini. So when the transit happens in Gemini, that's the logic and the higher mind. It's the two minds. So it's stimulating that lower mind to call forth your core being, Uranus in Sagittarius in the fourth house. Like, your foundation has truth seeking, the foundation of who you are has the higher wisdom, and it's calling that forth and really wanting to like destabilize anything that's caught in the mind itself, and bringing forth your wisdom into your work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, demanding that authenticity. Again, this one's an easy one to find. I showed you already, but here, so once you see it directly across the way at 22, that's your opposition. It already makes an opposition to your moon and to Psyche. So this might feel more like a familiar energy, just because it's already your whole life been working with your emotional body and your soul body, and really your expression, your midheaven, and your career. So this is nothing new. So this might feel just like pure clarity, like the sword of truth, and you're just super clear. I really do feel that intuitively for you that it's going to feel like the sword of truth. Because yeah, this is something. This is an energy you've technically been working with your whole life.
Wow. And you
Uh,
said that that's going to happen for me in 2030
yeah,
when it's exactly at 22 degrees.
yep. And we can even look at that just so you can keep practicing with the ephemeris here.
So you just have to keep like scrolling through these tables until you see your degree.
Uh-huh.
Is
Yeah,
that
that's it.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can do that with every time there's a full moon, or I mean, you can look ahead at
Oh,
things all the time.
okay.
If you hear about, you can look up these degrees anytime. So what did I say? August 30, and we're looking for 22. So Uranus is this little barbell looking thing. Oh, oh yeah, I keep accidentally looking at Saturn. Okay, Uranus. Yeah, so we start to get 20 in July and then 22 right here, 0 degrees, August 13th. Yeah, August 13th, 2030. And then let's see when it retrogrades or moves on. Yeah, so it's going to be at 22 degrees all the way through November, August to November. And then it'll start to retrograde in November 2030. And then that means we'll have more fun to play with that in 2031. Now, see how it's easier to read than going to the website.
Oh yeah.
All right, so Uranus 20. So it's direct and back over May 31st. Or no, sorry, May 28th. And then it'll be there May and most of June or half of June. And then it moves on June 14th.
It's Solon's birthday.
So not too bad. That's like a year. Ren's was like 2.5 years.
Wow.
It was a long transit, and it swiped his 3 times, and will finally leave April this year. So
Wow.
I'm
So does
really,
that look like, is that typically, I mean, because it's in my 10th house, does that mean more than likely like I'm going to have a career change? Or you think it's just a sharpening of
yeah. So
like
for
my
Ren, it
direction?
was happening in his 12th house. Yeah, I was like Saturn Neptune was in his 10th house. Yeah, so it could be just clarity. Again, yours feels different to me, just even intuitively feeling into it because Uranus has an opposition to that house already
Hmm.
and to your moon and midheaven and psyche. It feels like a familiar energy, but I feel like this is going to come in like either whatever wherever you've been holding back or doing something out of alignment will come in and be very clear that it has to be a sudden shakeup. And yes, it will be in the career or the legacy that you're building. Because you can also think even to your perfumes, if you were really wanting that to become something, it could be something really clear about needing to fully pivot that direction out of
Hmm.
your job and into that. Who knows? Like the other squares and stuff might be building, like helping build that, giving that creative flow, or whatever else comes up during that period. But it could also be, if you're still doing the same job, it could definitely feel like absolute clarity that something has to change, that you need to be liberated and free, that it's hard on your psyche, it's hard on your emotions, this squeezing your soul, and you really got to get out of there. It's also 10th house is also how you're seen in the public. It's your public reputation, your public platform, because that's Gemini. That's your voice again, and your how you speak and communicate. And um, I think because again, you're working with the opposite side, like trying to bring the balance to both the higher wisdom of Sagittarius and the mental intellect of Gemini. This could be a sudden clarity on your values, and you even like belief systems might change, and those might change your work and your alignment there. But yeah, again, Uranus oppositions, if you're aligned with what you're doing, they are not, they only destabilize what's not in alignment. So
Mhm.
if your work feels like soul work, which is what your work looks like that it asks you to do, and you have that like divine feminine, black moon Lilith, like intolerance for inequality and really there with your core wound also, like I'm not going to let you um, sink into this. We have to heal and do the job that our soul wants to do that fulfills your emotional body. And that processes through your emotional body and allows your soul to express your midheaven and your intellect and your voice. And Psyche's transiting that right now, actually. Do you see Psyche here?
Yeah.
Which 12 degrees. Yeah. So Psyche's sitting right on your core wound. Are you having like voice activations right now? Needing to
Mhm.
speak up? Yeah.
I
Funny.
actually recorded a video to post on Instagram, which I never do. I don't ever go on Instagram and like post a video of myself talking. But, like recorded it. I was just like going to share things that I've been doing to help stay grounded in these really crazy times. And I
Mhm.
recorded it and like immediately deleted it. I was like, nope, can't
Ah,
do it.
you would
So
such beautiful videos. And I think the world needs to hear your voice.
yeah.
And that's your soul working with your wound right now.
Hmm.
Yeah, because it's exact almost. I mean, the psyche's at 12, your Chiron is at 11.
Feels super uncomfortable, but that's the way it's supposed to feel with the wound, right?
Yes. And your Chiron is over here connected to Pisces and Jupiter. So it kind of expands that wound feeling a little bit. It makes it, hard to see.
Hmm.
Yeah, you gotta make another video.
I'll feel into that.
Yeah. So Uranus is going to be transiting that house once it moves in there in April for 7 years. It's usually like 7 to 8 years. So I do think because you have so much in that house, that's your stellium, that's like your main focus in your chart. You're going to feel that Uranian energy all the time through that house.
I'm
In
already feeling
fact,
it big time with just with AI coming in and mixing things up with how I communicate, which I am a communicator for my job. So
so
and I'm
maybe
like a leader in that, you know, I'm not like shying away from it. I'm like, oh, cool, let's do this. I'm gonna show everybody else how to do this.
maybe you'll be able to make an AI avatar of yourself so you don't have to be on camera, but you can speak still.
Oh my God, I love that idea.
It could even look like you, but then
Yeah,
you
yeah,
wouldn't have to have like your energy frequency on camera if that doesn't work.
yeah,
Although I think your energy is what people need to feel.
yeah.
Um, which actually, because that is your 10th house, they feel it through your voice. So sharing your voice, even if you don't have to be your face on camera, is the frequency that people are tuned into when you share in your work. It's your voice frequency. And I can just feel that from you also. What was I going to say? Oh, I would think back actually to last year, July 7th is when Uranus made its first pass into Gemini. And it was only there from like July to September and then retrograded back to Taurus. So if you look back and think back to things that came up during like summer last year, July to September, that will give you some heads up on what Uranus is going to be shifting in that house in particular. And then you have so many energy signatures working with Uranus. I think that will be what's big for you is your Uranus opposition. But again, I feel like I just really have this strong feeling like it'll be more about clarity for you than some kind of like
Joel.
destabilization, shakeup, jolt. And you're going to have practice with it all along as it hits your Black Moon Lilith, then it hits your Chiron wound. So I will say Ren's Uranus opposition has been tied to his Chiron wound. So right now, like his Chiron is 27 degrees Taurus in the 12th house, and
Mhm.
the place where Uranus has been stationing direct was 27 degrees Taurus. And so that's been a direct hit to his core wound. And it brought up all the things that he thought he overcame, the self worth stuff. And for him, it's 12th house. So it's deep subconscious stuff where it was like really hard to pinpoint, like, why would I have self worth issues? You know, I
Right.
was raised in a great family. I don't have this. And we realized the programming or the little threads that he decided as a child. So it was like deeply buried subconscious stuff, 12th house, which was really hard to do the work. It was hard to do the Uranus opposition work because it was hidden stuff. It was deep unconscious programming. But all those things reignited, like literally, and to where we're having to, the whole topic of having to sell our land, which came up on the day Uranus went direct on his Chiron. And all the like, in which my Venus is also 27 degrees Taurus, so it also is direct on my Venus, which Venus is tied to my partner, you know, and in my eighth
Mhm.
house of shared resources,
Those,
land,
yeah.
real estate, property, what you invest in. Also, as we talked about the eighth house, mystic occult teachings, like it is literally my sacred temple and on the land that I own with shared resources with my husband going through his Chiron core wound, married through my Venus. So I will,
Need it.
Uranus is no joke.
Yeah. Astrology is just, it's so spot on when you are aware of the transits and everything. It's just, it's like I just laugh every time I see it. I'm like, of course.
It's wild. I mean, it really
It
is. I'm
is.
always like, I always say like, I need to like make less importance on this and just maybe like take a break because it's so much. And then I'll be like, but I can't because it's so accurate.
Yeah.
Um,
You have thoughts, Liv, on like where you think astrology came from? I know some people believe that it was like handed down by aliens, which I like fully believe that. I feel like it was an ancient knowledge. It was passed forward from our galactic brothers and sisters, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I definitely do. I mean, intuitively and indigenous teachings share.
Mhm.
There's a lot of indigenous teachings that share that they used to work with star people. I know the Hopis called them star people. If
Yeah.
you look back to like a lot of stuff in Egyptian teachings, a lot of the Vedic stuff, I mean, so much talks
Yeah.
about a galactic relationship thousands of years ago. And of course, I know we've talked about this before. We don't think that our humanity is dated correctly. I think ancient civilizations go way further back, where even when you studied like the Kali Yuga, even if we look at that cycle of like right now we've been in the Kali Yuga, but all the other yugas had periods of enlightenment and golden periods and more expansive consciousness, if we're even limiting ourselves to that those particular cycles contained within the precession of the equinoxes. So I do think there was a period of time thousands of years ago. It's all over the Egyptian temples where there's star maps and astrology before that predate astrological records. So definitely, I definitely think it's galactic, but I think they came here to teach the language of astrology to us to understand from our perspective on Earth
Mhm.
and how the planets were influencing our experience on Earth. I don't think it is like a system that necessarily works on other star planets because I think they probably have a different language because they have different energies and different location in space, if you will. The thing that's been coming to my mind most recently is as we expand our consciousness and our understanding of quantum physics and plasma consciousness and even time construct itself and multidimensional reality. I mean, even on a basic level, you can tell, you know, just like they try to educate us through movies. Like 10 years ago, if you said a multiverse or a multi universe, or multi-dimensional realities, or even said the word dimensions, even like 7 years ago, people would have been
Yeah.
like, "What are you talking about?" But now
Yeah.
even kids understand this concept through Spider-Man movies,
Yeah.
and you can tell like that's a lot of how our, you know, I think creative artists come up with movies probably through channeled information
Yep.
and or star beings helping us. Um, But it's very common knowledge now to talk about a multiverse and multidimensional realities and other realms. That's super normal now. And so I do think the more we continue to expand upon that and our consciousness expands, it starts to become interesting where this type of astrology that we work with, particularly Western tropical astrology, is seasonally based on the rhythms of Earth according to time, and time as a construct here. And we pay attention to timing cycles. It's why it starts with Aries. But if you look at like Vedic astrology or sidereal astrology, that or true sky now is talking about the constellations themselves in the sky.
Yeah.
So the fact that we're even starting to have a switch with people wanting to look at, well, why is it that Jupiter's not in Cancer when you look up in the sky? But
Mm.
you're telling me it's activating my chart in Cancer in my chart, but it's in Leo.
Right.
So, and people are already questioning that a lot. And then I think it's meant to work with both. Like it's part of our multidimensional aspect because we are humans standing on earth, moving through cycles of time and rhythm and calendars. And as long as we're doing that, we are aligned with understanding the archetypal astrology through Western tropical astrology. But the more we continue to look up and
Mhm.
understand the constellations and our understanding of our place within the universe and other star systems. And I do think our galactic consciousness is going to shift our desire to understand time, construct, and rhythm in this pattern of astrology. And I think
Yeah.
our astrology is going to evolve over the next few years to be more galactic, more expansive, and more less of a time construct, I guess, where we're in a different rhythm.
Yeah.
That's the most interesting to me right now. And it's
Yeah.
weird because both are true. So if I look at
Yeah.
Vedic astrology, it's completely different. I'm like a Virgo, and I'm like, what? I'm still not a Virgo. But there's aspects where I'm like, yeah, I guess, yeah, I can see myself like that too. And it's being able for our consciousness to hold space for both, that we are all the things, just like we are. I think it will help us understand our oneness, that I am you and you are me. And even though we're different bodies and different lenses that we're looking through, are both this oneness that is the everything, that we are the universe. So I don't know. I think astrology and the evolution of it in the next few years is going to help us to understand that oneness because we're all the things.
Wow.
But yeah, I do think it's definitely galactic to answer your story short. Okay.
Right. Progressed moon.
The progressed moon is something else I found super interesting. And is another one of those timing cycle things. So progressed moon changes signs. It spends 2.5 years in a sign and basically tracks your progress or maturation in life. So if your moon started in one house when you were born, it actually, like, you're always going to have. So this is where we work with your chart, your blueprint always. And just like when we do your solar return chart, you have like a theme, like a chapter of your year. This is kind of looking at your moon and how you process emotions that way. So you're always going to be a particular moon sign, which yours is in the 10th house in Gemini. So you're always a Gemini moon. But every 2.5 years, you start to process those 2.5 years through a new lens of your emotions through a new lens. So it's kind of like helping you evolve your emotional body. So it shows that your inner weather, your needs change, your triggers change, your longings change, your emotions mature, your internal cycles mature, and your intuition opportunities open and change differently. So we'll go over here and look at how to find your progressed moon. Um, oh, let me see. I'm gonna make it fresh. Extended charts. Do you know how to pull your chart on astro.com?
Hmm.
Okay. So Erica. So we come here. So instead of natal wheel, we're going to look for progressed chart. Oh, there it is. This is interesting. You can do a progressed sun, but that moves a lot slower. It's like 1 degree a year. So you only go through like 3 different sun signs. Um, Okay. So yeah, like this year, right now, you are a Sagittarius moon. That's moving your emotional body through the third house. Look at you with your, and it's opposing your wound. Um, so this is interesting. So it'll spend 2.5 years here. So that means you're about halfway through this cycle with it being at 16 degrees. And then you'll eventually move, I think it's 1 degree a day, is it? Did I put that in here? I always forget. I think it's 1 degree a month. Does that make sense? Yeah, 1 degree a month.
Yeah.
So anyway, you're halfway there to moving, and then you'll start to move and process through a Capricorn emotional body. But I think it's so interesting. So if you think about, you started off as a Gemini moon, so it's moved through your life every 2.5 years through each one of these signs so far. So you've kind
Yeah.
of halfway matured your emotional, and in fact, you're exactly like halfway of maturing because you're in the exact opposite sign of your regular moon. But
Okay.
this time it's having you mature your emotions through your third house. So through your voice, through your communications. You're having a lot of oppositions over here to your sun sign. It's not in a super tight conjunction to Uranus, but it probably has an awakening effect here with you. Yeah, it's within 5 degrees. But it is opposing your core wound, Chiron over here. So that's interesting because that's just bringing up, helping you, I think, clear those things for these activations that will happen in your 40s when you have that Uranus transit through Gemini. So that's interesting. Um,
I'm going to be talking very confidently to everybody without
yeah,
fear.
yes, you are. So this is like tracking again, like what your spirit is digesting, lessons that you're integrating, and it's going to be all through that Sagittarius lens right now. So you hold space for both. Like that's interesting that it's directly across because now you're like a Gemini moon, but at birth, but you've matured. That's like your emotions are in the higher octave of your Sagittarius moon qualities. So you're really bringing in wisdom and faith and adventure and optimism and those Jupiter qualities of the higher mind, the higher wisdom. So, okay, I know we only have a few minutes left. So the period of the 40s, you do go through. I mean, this period is really shadow work. You're meant to be, I think it happens in your 40s because you've had this whole foundation of life to make you strong enough, wise enough, spiritually mature enough, and ready to meet what you couldn't face before. And again, for the purpose of liberation and awakening. So there's a couple of prompts as you move through your 40s that you can pay attention to patterns, your fears, parts of you that you know are old and dying and letting go of and releasing, and what parts of you also equally paying attention to what is being born. So these are not about moving through old trauma for trauma's sake. This is about just recognizing the parts of you that you've had to suppress or hold back or weren't ready for, have had to do the work to become knowledgeable of. 20s and 30s, the shadow work was more simple around identity formation. Where do I belong? Who are my friends? What are my jobs? They're a little bit more basic as they build you. But this is now, often people are letting go of being the good girl or the achiever or the caretaker or the peacekeeper or somebody that overserves. Um, so this can show up like fatigue, inflammation, hormonal shifts, nervous system sensitivity. It requires structured work. So again, this is why I think we go through our perimenopause for so long, because it isn't just about losing your cycle. If our and men do too. Like they go through hormonal changes, and it's not just about a cycle. I mean, they go through health journeys as well. But this is definitely a deep period of self inquiry, self study, and oftentimes takes somatic practices, boundary work, ritualized release practices like writing letters to yourself or cord cutting, or letting go of outdated identities, really looking like people will shift um, friends, communities, groups to better align. So it feels like a lot of excavation happens. But in the body, a lot changes with your hormones, nervous system, your gut health, inflammation in the body, sleep changes, psychic openings happen, somatic release, emotional intelligence in the body. The body, I think, is really trying to come online. And if you think about indigenous cultures that respect the elders, that also care and have sacred ceremony and rites of passage, and we move through life in these intentional ways, like when somebody becomes, a man or a woman with their first cycle, or, moves into manhood, those are like really important rites of passage that we were supposed to pay attention to. And I think people that lived more in tune with the rhythms of earth and nature naturally did. And so it wasn't this collapse, because you're not like moving through these hormonal changes simultaneously to like a 3D life where you need to function at high octane capacity. You need to be like clear and no naps, and how dare you sleep and how dare you rest. And especially here in America, where we're supposed to function at full capacity, but you're like moving through an initiation in life to become the wise elder,
Yeah.
and our whole body is going through it. So while you have your external world shifting in all the ways that it does, your body is basically mirroring that. And so it's really, this isn't a class on hormones, but it does show up like your body will not let you do the old ways of being, like over performing, over working out. Some of the foods have to change, inflammation in the body change, and new needs emerge, and new sleep patterns even emerge. And so those are a lot of things that will come up with Pluto and Uranus. Also, that brings up nervous system and emotional releases. Your energy body is changing. I called it was interesting when Saturn moved into Pisces, that was in my sixth house. And that really became loud and clear for me that I moved for 3 years was definitely a heightened focus on my body. And all my hormones came into play. My diet changed from vegan back to meat. And I didn't know the astrology at the time. I'm just like all hindsight, like, wow, 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 all this stuff. And my dreams came online really loud, where it became everyday vivid dreaming instead of like once or twice a week. And sleep patterns changed, and my energy body and psychic abilities and sensitivity and intuition turned on. And the more I understood what was happening, the more I could get out of the pain body and into honoring my body and supporting and making the changes that I needed to do. So Pluto technically kind of oversees needing detoxes and cellular regeneration and elimination. So both in emotions and physically. Inflammation,
Yeah.
deep fatigue, purges, emotional detoxes often are going to mirror in your body the work that Pluto is doing externally. So as things are like going through that Pluto transformation, it's supportive and will help you move through those transformations with ease, when you also mirror in your body to do more of the like detox type stuff, and pay attention to what your body's asking for. Neptune will feel more like water stuff and hormones, endocrine system, fluids, bloating, water retention, fog, numbing behaviors. This is where people's addiction patterns can resurface. People have been like addicts for years. Sober for years, can find themselves accidentally coming back to those things. So those are things you want to watch out for the collapse of. But it also increased sensitivity to substances, things you didn't ever have allergies with or weren't bothered by. All of a sudden, you can't tolerate them anymore. Like I said, bad Chinese food went to my list. And hormonal flexes. Uranus works with your nervous system, electrical impulses, and intuition. I have never been an anxious person. I think I was like back in my event day, but only because I worked with such like high energy performance that I had to be. And I would have like shortness of breath. But ever since like finding yoga and like really making that my journey, I've really learned my tools for managing anxiety. But with Uranus stuff, I will feel it like the whole, like ever since Uranus went direct on Venus, I have a constant stream of either high energy frequency or anxiety. I can't discern between the two. And I have to go do extra grounding work outside, and more of my meditation, more of my breath work, more body tapping, more somatic practices than usual. So I literally definitely feel it when Uranus does stuff. But quick shifts in energy, hot flashes start to happen, sudden awakenings, restless sleep, flashes of insight, intuitive downloads, kundalini surges. Aren't you excited about your 40s? Going back to thinking about the perfections, those timing cycles, just as a reminder, during 41, that's like sixth house. So that is what I was talking about: digestion, stress, inflammation, habits, nervous system care, chronic issues. And at 47 in particular, it works with the 12th house, which is where I am right now, which is dissolving old coping mechanisms, and what numbed you before just won't work the same. And I have totally been feeling that. And I wanted to share those because those are really relevant for me right now. But there's been this like the 12th house is like a spiritual final, like everything I've learned for the entirety of my 40s has been resurfacing with like such aha and clarity and a deepening to where I literally crave silence. Whereas used to, I could just eat like YouTube videos all day studying, take all these courses. I can't even sit in a course to study, like taking in information for myself. And I love to be more in the teacher role. I love sharing what I've learned. I love to be in community and alone. I love quiet spiritual practices, whereas before I love to go to sound healings and have, experience lots of other teachers. And that's just not, that hasn't been in resonance for me this year. I've been loving quiet. But it's interesting because I only found out about the perfections in time to learn that I was about to be reborn at 48. And I'm like, hallelujah. There's like a return to your vitality, and your emotions are now like settled, your spiritual identity, like who you've been becoming through all of this, like finally reemerges. Like you're literally being born as a new person, kind of as this elder that's been through it all. And I've like gotten a hold of my hormones. Everything feels in alignment again, and I'm like, it feels good because there's a lot that really moves through your 40s, literally, physically, emotionally, mentally, astrologically. Um, so yeah, you'll have nervous system sensitivity that you maybe didn't have before, metabolism and diet changes, emotional somatic changes, like tightness in the chest, throat closing, heart flutters. There was a year, I think it was like when I was 43 and 44, I had a flip flop heart all the time. And I was like, I wonder, during that time, I'm like, is this ascension symptoms?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, all of this is energy, so probably. I don't have that at all anymore. I didn't have to go do anything about it. It happened all the time for a year. And mainly when I laid in bed at night, it would flip flop and feel like my heart would turn over and flutter. And I had one day when I was sitting teaching a yoga teacher training where all of a sudden I got super dizzy, like saw stars, and my boss was in the room with us, and she took my blood pressure and it had skyrocketed, like heart attack levels. And then never happened again. And I went and had my heart looked at and everything was fine. So I don't know if that's just part of these energies at play, but it was definitely like a real thing that I went through phases of like all kinds of weird things, gut health things, heart things, intolerance things, obviously like hormones needing to change. Gained 30 pounds last year, or the last 2 years. And I have now lost 24 pounds this year. So I'm like, what? And I really think part of that is like energetic. It's also like your hormones going out of whack, but part of it is like density. And then the weight loss is like shedding density. Like there's a recalibration happening. It's wild. But also like vivid dreams, intuition. I think all of that clairsentience spikes also. So
While the think you're supposed to be going through all of this when we're also supposed to be at peak performance in your 40s, like you were
mhm.
saying, like in the Western world, that like your 40s are considered like your mastery years in your career. You're supposed to be productive. Like
Yeah,
that's a lot to as an expectation. So I'm really
it's
glad that people are coming, like that we have this information now, and people are kind of like rejecting the hustle culture. And I
totally.
feel really glad that we're moving into a different era.
Yeah, and what's interesting is in 2027, according to human design, we're actually moving into 400 years of the era of projector energy, where we've been in 400 years of manifestor energy or generator energy.
It's
So
exhausting.
the whole entire
Exhausting.
industrial revolution has been generator energy of just go, 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 hustle culture, time is money. But it's
Yeah.
interesting. This is our last year of that. And you can feel like, I mean, you see it everywhere and people are awakening to it and all the things that are going to happen this year with all of this rare astrology. But by the time we get to 2027, we move into the era of the individual. And projector era is about, and I say individual not as like disconnected from others, but like because you fill your cup, you're more able to be in community better. And it's more about rest and creativity and imagination and moving from inspiration only, not because it makes money, and a whole bunch of cool stuff that's just like way more chill and completely opposite of where we've been for 400 years. So
It's
to me, that was
awesome.
another sign that we're evolving in the right direction. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is time. These years are about slowing down and listening to the body, doing all the things to support the body and your body really, is your technology that's going to communicate with your soul and your higher self and what you're supposed to be doing and when and where and how. And these are just some prompts to journal about as you move through the system. And then I included some embodiment practices and uh, yeah, this is just goes over like the years that kind of focus on 42 kind of focuses on partnership, the marriage house, seventh house, 43 dives into the eighth house and some shadow work there. Again, we talked about 47 and 48 coming into your rebirth. Um, that's some more of the perfection information, spiritual awakening peaks during these years, 44 to 49. And these I just included just to help you, like, especially as you move later, I included some of the examples of my own journey so that in case that helps you understand what that journey is asking. And let me try to see if there's anything else important. Yeah, these are just more questions and reflection prompts, what your soul is asking you to do. And the rebirth at 48. And the last thing is just Chiron in your 50s. From 40, somewhere between 49 to 51, you have your Chiron return. And when we started the whole course, I was talking about everything is technically for that moment that you become the elder of your circle. You become the wise elder. You know yourself to your core. You've loved yourself through and through, body, heart, and soul, and just really feel solid in your being that you're aligned with your highest path, that you are able to depart wisdom on younger generations and the people in your community and people around you, and come from this place of lived embodied wisdom. It's all about embodiment. And I will say that part of the 40s journey, particularly for me the last couple of years, the last 3 years with Saturn in my sixth house, was a second awakening happens. Like, you have your first awakening where you come to know the world as we do now, where we're like, oh my God, everything has been a lie. But also part of that awakening is the up and out, where we seek source and God and to know what our divine true nature is. And, all the way to galactic. So whatever interests you, whatever you've awakened to, that's more soul aligned, this journey up and out. And I want to know spirit. And then the second awakening, which happens in your 40s, is really this landing back in your body. And you're kind of like, whoa, I've become out of body. I realized I was maybe untethered. And this body is loud and has a lot to say. And at least it was for me, because I didn't have this astrological information to guide me. But I was like, I haven't been feeding myself. I've been living on sunlight and breath, and I need food and like to reground. But it is a second journey where I think that happens because it's about taking everything you learned in your up and out journey and embodying it. So now it's taking all of that high frequency energy and being able to recalibrate it into your physical form so that you are spirit being in human form and that you can embody that divine true nature. And that's part of the journey of the 40s is to do that. So again, when you come to Chiron return, you are like this guru that can then help others and help support community and understanding the journey of spirit to body, which is also, which is technically this whole awakening journey. And it really is located between your late 30s and 50s. That's the entire awakening portal, capped off by Chiron, the core wound, which is like the key to unlocking your entire chart. Which yours will be when Chiron journeys to Gemini.
Mm.
Right now it's over here in Aries. So you have quite a ways. We have, it'll enter Taurus this year, which will come from my Chiron return in a couple years. But later this year it enters Taurus and it'll retrograde back. But so yeah, that's, you have any questions?
I don't think so. This is super comprehensive, and I'm looking forward to just like mapping all of this, putting it into a journal, and also having the prompts is really great for me. I do a lot of processing through writing, so being able to like reflect and on the different themes and ask myself questions, I think it's going to be great for integrating all of this.
Cool. Yeah, this was a fun one for me to create just because of my own lived experience and
Yeah.
hindsight, and then having had the astrology to help counsel Ren through it since he's 5 years younger than me. So
Hmm.
I learned a lot through him. And I also have, such deep gratitude for him supporting my journey because I was able to really merge with all my soul nudges and not be in the hustle culture, to
Hmm.
move through things. Like there was, I mean, last year I couldn't have had a job if I wanted. My health was so bad last year that it felt like I was on death's doorstep. I got to a point where I could only whisper when I was talking. And so I'm super grateful for him, even though he's been going through his dark night of the soul through his own journey, that I was able to care for myself through this process. And I hope you feel supported and loved and have all that you need through your journey. And again, I say this with like, my journey was beautiful. It didn't feel stressful or scary. It had big changes that felt maybe scary in the moment. And looking back, it was a lot more than I thought, than I even gave it credit for during the moments.
Yeah.
But it's a beautiful initiation portal, and I'm excited for you. And I can't wait to celebrate your 40th birthday soon, also.
Thank you. I'm
And
going to Amsterdam.
oh, how exciting!
Yeah. Uh,
That's beautiful.
is it next? Yeah, not this week, but next week. And Michael's going to come with me. So,
Yay! Oh, have you been there before?
yeah, I was actually
Like
there this
for work,
time
right?
last year for work. So I have to go to Brussels for work um, next week on the 3rd. And I have like 2 days of meetings there. And I told Michael, I said, well, you should just come meet me. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take the train from Brussels to Amsterdam.
I love it. That's a
Yeah.
wonderful way to start.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And again, thank you for carving out time to sit and play with me today.
Yeah. Thank you, Liv. This is so wonderful.
All
Thank you.
right. I'll send you the replay as soon as it uploads. Some of these longer ones take a day.
Oh, wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, hopefully I'll see you on Wednesday.
All right. Sounds good. Bye.
Bye.
All right. Thank you for attending Astrology for Your 40s. Peace.